Θα μιλάω το μικρόφωνο, όχι επειδή δεν με ακούτε, αλλά γράφουμε τον ήχο, οπότε είναι σημαντικό να μιλάω το μικρόφωνο. Okay, I'm very glad to be here, and I'm very glad because you are here, and we're going to have a very interesting discussion about AI in transportation. We will start with the professor, Mr. Minos Eleftheriou, to have a short introduction about it. Please, Minos.
Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Minos Eleftheriou. I'm assistant professor at the college. Actually, I'm assistant professor and program coordinator for operations and supply chain management, which is one of the programs that we have in the Department of Maritime, Transportation and Supply Chain, which is one of the departments in the School of Business and Economics. It's one of the 5 or 6 schools that we have in the degree college, which is one of the 3 divisions along with Pierce and Alba that make the American College of Greece, which means that the American College of Greece is a rather large organization. Currently, we are hosting about more than 8,000 students in all levels of education. Pierce starts from 3 years old students up to 18 years. Actually, the rumor has it that it's more difficult to get into the Pierce kindergarten than in Harvard. Then we have degree college that offers undergraduate and graduate studies, and Alba, which offers graduate business studies here. Here are the premises of Alba. A few things about American College that you might know, probably you might not know. I hope you are interested in learning. American College of Greece started 151 years back in Smyrna, in Minor Asia. After 1923, it was relocated in Athens. Now it is the main campus, the degree campus is in Paraskevi. As I told you, we have more than 8,000 students. More than 20% of them are from non-Greeks, from other countries. This is something that I guess public universities would be jealous of that. There are 9 million euros of scholarships that are given to these students. And we are very proud to say that we have more than 1,000 students from Greek universities making minor studies or parallel studies with degree. And this is certainly something that public universities envy us for, is that we have every semester about 700 students from the United States having following their study abroad project. Now, as I told you, I'm the program coordinator for operations supply chain management, so I really look for this for Professor Vyas. I welcome Professor Vyas in our premises. I'm looking forward to listen to you. We have issues with AI. Issues with AI and education are different, but well, I'll try to provoke you a little bit. What amazes me is how much students are trusting AI. They tell me, oh, we're going to make focus with AI, or forecasting with AI is so nice. And I'm saying, did you do it with simple moving average? What is simple moving average? We don't know. It's very difficult. Adornge, do you remember simple moving average? Okay. Okay, thank you so much, and sorry for taking your time. Please.
Thank you, and thanks to Jerry and Alba for hosting us here. It is a very nice place. I'm telling that on behalf of ITSLS and on behalf of TELENAVIS. So, thank you very much. And thank you very much, all of you, that you are here. I'm going to introduce my friend, Professor Vyas, or Vyas. Huh?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Well, for being in a Greek, let's agree, actually, yes.
Okay. He's an amazing professor in logistics in LA, He has been a consultant also to governments, to US government and to other governments. The last year, as all of us, AI has become his reality. And he has seen a lot of things, what is happening in AI worldwide. So, Nick, please come and take the microphone.
Thank you. Let's see, it's about 5:10, so still good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? This is how my class starts. First of all, I'm so happy that some of you are sitting in the front, because often the back gets filled and the front somehow does not get filled. But it's a pleasure to be here. And Costa is in Georgia, a very dear friend, and it's our first inaugural visit to such a beautiful country, but also one of the most ancient civilizations, the cradle of Western democracies, comes from this land. So I'm so happy that we have an opportunity, my wife Amal is here with me, that we have an opportunity to see these things in the first hand and talk about my world of supply chain, and then we'll get into the AI. So you guys talked about the schools, so let's start with just a quick introduction. So once again, as Costa's mentioned, so I'm a full faculty at the University of Southern California. For those of you who don't know, that's the two private universities west of Chicago. One being Stanford and USC. USC is the larger of the two. We have about 44,000 students from undergraduate to doctoral. 23 schools. So university is at 23 different schools, one of them being the business school, known as the Marshall. We are in Southern California. So for those of you who know geographically, Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, the largest port infrastructure in North America. So 40% of the goods that gets consumed in not only the lower 48 states in the United States, but also Alaska and Hawaii, touches the San Pedro Bay, which is part of LA and Long Beach. So about 15 years ago, the Dean Alice had a vision to start something in supply chain, and I'm the founding executive director for Kendrick Global Supply Chain Institute, along with being an academic director for Masters of Science in Global Supply Chain Management. So my world not spins, but sometimes moves around the global supply chain. Right? My work focuses on the global is a big piece. Right? In other words, understanding how the component, what we're going to talk about, not only works within the context of U.S., North America, Americas, Latin America, included to Europe and Asia. So I spend a lot of time working cross-continent, cross-border. Among the books that we talked about let me just focus on two because it's going to be very relevant. So for those of you who remember when the crypto was announced, Bitcoin was announced. Anybody remember the year in which the crypto was announced?
Let's cast the
2010. Anybody else? Well, the case study was published in 2000, but the Bitcoin first mined was in 2009, 2010. The concept behind that was not more about the Bitcoin, but the blockchain, the distributed ledger. Right? It was a very fascinating from the world of supply chain. So we're going to start with that. So we wrote the book, my colleague and I, wrote the book about understanding the distributed ledgers and the distributed technology in the supply chain, world of logistics and supply chain, we realized that there was a constraint that this Bitcoin underpinning technology will actually work in a finance more than supply chain. I want you to hold that thought. Why? But it did not work. IBM and Maersk spent over $250 million a startup, pumped in additional $2.5 billion, and it failed. Right? So I want you to keep this thought in mind when we talk about the AI. So now fast forward, the distributed ledger, the blockchain did not penetrate, right? So there is a failure in our world. The supply chains are not easy. Global supply chains are specifically not easy. Why are we talking about AI today? And I'm going to come to that. Then came 2020. What happened in 2020? COVID, right? You guys know as well as I do. It was a pandemic of century. 158 countries out of 188 were completely shut down, brought to their knees. Did not matter you happen to be continent of Europe, Americas, Asia, doesn't matter you are the superpower or you have no power. You are equally disrupted. And the reason was more than a pandemic. What was the reason? Why the human civilization, outside of the Spanish flu and a Black Plague, came to its knee? What was the reason? Supply chains. Right? We designed and executed for 4.5 decades of our supply chain with limited vision and thinking, and we're going to touch on that. So what I'm planning to do today in my time, I want this to be more interactive. This is very personal time I have with you. So interject, raise your hand. We'll have questions throughout while I'm talking. Hopefully most of your questions will be answered along the way, but we'll certainly have plenty of opportunity to talk about it. So I want you to sort of think about this, right? So we wrote the book, my colleague and I, we wrote the first book challenging operations research and operations management, what is known as the network optimization taboo. For 4 decades that was taught in universities across the world. Every research that you'll see, empirical research, advanced research, applied research, has been taught and practiced in operations management with a very singular focus of cost or the speed optimization. Right? So we actually build the models called supply chain network design. The book published, and we're in process of writing the second edition of this book, which will be published in May next year. But the idea here is understanding the landscape has changed. The reason I bring these things up before we get into the details is that I want you to frame this thought. From a pandemic of the century and a previous technology, blockchain, which did not succeed, and why we believe that AI would have something different for us. So hopefully over the next 90 minutes, I will convince you that what we're about to talk is very different, very real. And not only in our lifetime, but I would promise that this is as big, if not bigger, the invention of electricity, distribution of electricity into what Industrial Revolution was kicked off, to aviation, and any major milestones we can think about in human civilization. I would propose to you that this will actually enable us to come to that conclusion, right? So I have 4 or 5 acts that I put together, so I'm going to walk you through. We'll start with the global. Let's talk about global, because this is what I spend my life. Understanding the trade, understanding the government policy, the role of government, what's happening in our world. So let's talk about global. We all know the GDP forecast is diminishing. COVID started it. Geopolitics continued it. We helped. We're taping this, right? Okay, so the policy-induced disruptions such as tariff and other those things also created. So we expect the rest of the year, especially this year, 1.4% of GDP growth, global, which is dismal. Compared to when you look at it, we're coming off of 4.6 GDP growth, primarily coming out of Asia and MENA regions as well as Africa. What concerns me here, if you are Europe, which we are in Europe, America and Europe, as a EU as a continent, and US as a big powerhouse within the Americas, GDP obviously is slowing down dramatically. So if we revise this number and only focus on our world, the numbers are very dramatically lower. So what we're seeing now, we all know the Strait of Hormuz. That's all we hear in the news. Iran war started it. Well, Iran conflict goes back to 70s, 1974. That was the first attack on embassy, U.S. embassy, and hostage situation led to crisis. And that Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, was never used as a weapon until the war just happened in February. So it showed one thing, that 138 vessels were queued up and 0 were able to transit through. You realize the importance of what that one single node in our supply chain or transportation can do to the global economy, right? So we learned that it chokes up about 20% of the capacity, supply side, to the global industrial output. What drives the industrial output? Energy. So when you choke the energy going into the industrial supply node, of course you're going to see inflation, higher cost of inputs, that translates into the higher cost of goods sold. Right? But not only that, the third of the fertilizers comes out of that. Now you layer this on top of Ukraine-Russia conflict, which supplies another 26% of the fertilizers raw material coming in. What happens to the agricultural product? What happens to the food prices? So these are the sort of an aggregate impact that we're seeing. But then you just think of this, if you're running a business, especially if you're multinational, or even if you're domestic, just singularly focus on Greece. You have some interdependency upstream and downstream with other countries. All of these things will matter. So now think about other choke points, and this is just the maritime. I'm not talking about aviation, I'm not talking about cross-border supply chains. Just think about sewage, Malacca, the Panama. The biggest one, we don't talk about it, South China Sea, is the Taiwan Strait. How many of you believe that China will actually at some point will make an attempt to take over Taiwan? Okay, this is the first audience where only 4 hands actually gone now. Here's the promise, I'll tell you. It will happen, the question is when. Right? That intention has been very clear that China has claimed that it is their desire to integrate Taiwan into the main, what is known as the Greater China. So just imagine and stipulate the scenarios out. What does this mean for the global economy? If you think the Strait of Hormuz would be a drop in a bucket. 46% of the freight moves from Asia into the rest of the world. Imagine South China Sea, big impact. Imagine the conflict between the ASEAN, Greater India, passing through the goods and commodities. So, idea is that if you think that these events are in isolation and it will pass through like a storm or the cloud, I'm news. It isn't. This is actually now going to be the part of these things, right? So people often, I was in Mexico and they talk about, well, but that's okay, we'll just reroute the vessels. Easier said than done. 11,000 kilometer detour. And when you talk about 11,000 kilometer detour, for those of you who are in operations and supply chain and running business, that's a time. That's your inventory on the water. That's your equipment taken out of capacity. You're not turning the assets around as quickly as you used to. So these things are very difficult, right, to think about it. So the book I talked about, Holy Trinity, we taught for the last 4 decades. I'm a byproduct of that school system as an industrial engineer. Speed, cost, and reliability. That's all we dreamed about. But do one thing better and give me the biggest variable that I want to optimize is what out of all of those things? Cost. Maximize the profitability, reduce the cost. So what we decided to do in that, cost was the best way to reduce the cost is what? If you're costing me 2,000 euro a month labor here, and I can go to Albania and pay somebody 800 euro, it's much easier for me to pack up a bag, go across, and move over. Well, we did that. For 35 years, when things got expensive, what we did? Offshore. We made China the biggest manufacturing node in the world. It took us exactly 31 years. To the point that 72% of the SKUs, essential SKUs, that we use in our daily lives came from that one single country. That's what choked, not the COVID. It was our practice of running the business, building the biggest node without having the redundancy nor the resiliency built into our network. So that's out of the way, the speed out of the way, just in time. I talked about it, I teach about it, are being questioned now, right? And the resiliency is building what if for one breakpoint or 2 breakpoints. That scenario is no longer viable. So what's this holy trinity we've been practicing for over 3 decades? What do we need to do? Well, here are the 3 things that I'm going to talk about. Technology. This is a big piece of AI that I'm going to set the stage for. Geopolitical awareness. The sad news is the 4 decades of peaceful trade is out. Prepare for years to come that these geopolitical conflicts will be in our lives. So just plan around it, accept it, adapt it, and build a resiliency. And then the last but not the least, we often don't talk about, is the cybersecurity. Future wars 20 years from now will not be fought by dropping missiles and bombs. All I have to do, take your grid, utility systems, aviation system, communication system offline, and you're crippled. So the future war will be fought on this. So how does your organization become resilient in a cyber trust? I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but I'm just going to talk about this. So let's get into the Act 2. So we've gone from now global to let's talk about the EU. You guys have serious issues. And I'm talking as an American, I'm not appointed by Trump administration, but I am saying in terms of the overburden of policy over the last 2 decades and its implication on the businesses has been tremendously overburdening. So you think about degradation of German manufacturing. It took us exactly 40 to 50 years to build it. It took us less than 12 to 14 years to destroy it. They're realizing it now. The entire defense, aerospace, aviation, advanced manufacturing, semi-advanced manufacturing. So what I call the Europe at the inflection point. And I think it's happening, and I'm so happy for that. So let's talk about the way the vision has shifted, and I think this is something Trump 2.0 has suddenly helped, in which Europe is waking up and realizing that we can no longer rely on the NATO to provide the basic guarantees of a lot of things we take it for granted. But this new policy is also making aware of it that Europe needs to really have a business-friendly policies. So things can be done. You can be sustainable. You can also be greener. You can also be resilient, and you can also be digital without overburdening, overtaxing the businesses. So what we're seeing is the nearshoring as a part of China plus strategy. Europe is actually now following the footsteps of what US is on the steroid. In our country, if you are into 8 different verticals, including examples such as the batteries, the semiconductor, aerospace, defense, anything that goes into something that exposes national security, you better have your manufacturing network either onshore or nearshore, outside of China. It was a very forceful way of instituting what I call the decouplings of supply chains out of China. It is on a full steroid. It's happening, it will happen. When Trump 1.0 instituted that policy, Biden continued for 4 years. Trump 2.0 went a little bit further. And I promise you, 2028, when the new government comes in, doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, it will continue. And the expectation is EU will follow the same. So what does that mean to you guys as business leaders, right? So billions of dollars are going to be invested. This will be the new gold rush. So if you take a look at it in terms of the money coming in, this is really the biggest areas of opportunity. Embracing the technology, understanding, taking the paddle off of the regulation, allowing business to thrive, and making sure that the Europe becomes relevant from semi to advanced manufacturing. So you guys have about 2 decades of leg up than the rest of the world, specifically US, right? So after Europe is China, who's really now focusing on sustainable supply chains. But I would tell you that that is actually to the advantage of European government and as a union, that you have an early start in this area. And if you embrace the AI correctly, and I'm going to tell you why, I think you can actually dominate this space. Because the foundation of circular economy, the principle by which you lead day-to-day lives, is built into your psyche. It's not in America. It's certainly not in the majority of the countries in Asia. And even the Chinese government is running these things top-down, bottom-up. It's not being adopted with the philosophy of being circular. So you guys have a unique advantage. So I'm going to plant that thought as we get into the AI, why AI becomes more relevant for you guys. So think about Europe. This is just last year. You're pumped in about $200 billion. Now, it doesn't look big dollar amount when you consider the size of AI being generated into the United States, which goes into the trillions. This is a sizable investment that EU is making as a continent. And building the gigafactories, right? This is the same government 3 years ago said the AI is bullshit, it consumes a lot of energy, we don't want to touch it, it breaches a lot of the personal security, information, the violations, human capital. The Draghi pivot, which is what the Brussels calls it, has committed $200 billion. This is real money that's going to go into for them to support it, right? So from global to Europe to Greece. I've spent time studying academically. Obviously, I've now been here now for about 5 or 6 days. I truly believe you guys have an incredible opportunity. Imagine a country that touches the 3 continents, and you sit in the gateway of what action is. You talk about bridge to Asia, to the Africa. Asia is the continent that's going to boom this century. 7.6% projected growth for the rest of the century. This is the century of Asia. No questions about it. Europe had it for 3 centuries. So in a macro data point, every 350 years the reset occurs. And history will teach you this, right? I mean, if you look at the Belt and Road, the Silk Road, 1100 years ago, to now you look at it. So this macro trend, this is, but you guys are actually the bridge that ties to this, and how do we talk about it? So I'm not going to talk about you guys because you are from here, so I'm not going to talk about some of the points, but I think I want us to think about what Greece can play a role independent and independently with EU to take advantage of the physical location, building the access to the largest continent, Africa, to Asia, booming continent, both from the population standpoint and from the growth standpoint, to being in EU. So let's talk about the Greek journey, the Greece's journey in terms of maritime, because we're going to now start to get into the logistics side of it, right? You have incredible opportunity. Yes, the port is run by Costco, and I'm sure that there will be some geopolitical consequences at some point. If the Taiwan issues pops up, for example, or if other geopolitical conditions are compromised, you will likely to see operators of the Costcos and the Chinese ports across the world. You've seen this happen in the Suez and the Panama Canal. The US and the European governments are now working to sort of balance that structure to make sure that ports can be used as a military asset or can be compromised also for the national security. How does this will play in? But outside of that, I mean, you imagine the opportunities you guys have to play into the European growth. The $200 billion, I talked about it. When things get onshore, what is Greece's role? What you guys can play into it? So, this is something just yesterday I was watching. Yesterday, when we were in Tino's, I was watching the IMF World Conference that was held in Geneva, and this IMEC conversation. So there are 3 roads to Europe that's going to prevail, right? The Suez, the Cape that we know, but the new one, which is IMEC. Anybody heard about that? This is a huge initiative, India, Middle East corridor to the European Union. Between these 3, IMEC is going to be the challenger. So they're going to build equivalent of what China has built, Belt and Road. Belt and Road was started exactly 25 years ago. Vision of Xi Jinping, basically controlling the assets, air, road, and the water. They pumped close to $1.5 trillion over 20 years to build the superiority among any civilization in terms of controlling all of those 3 nodes. IMEC to actually counter that. It goes through, as you can see, through the Middle East, cuts right through the Jordan to the Saudis, all the way through, building the route, both the land and the water, coming to tying to Europe as an alternative route. Right? So this is not just a commercial route, but also the military. Because as a quad, US, India, Japan, and Australia wants to use this as a backup. If the Taiwan Strait becomes a hot flashpoint, that we would have the capacity to move goods into the Europe and Americas, bypassing South China Sea. So when you think about this trillions of dollars of investments, the strategic alternatives that the countries are planning either individually or collectively together, businesses needs to be aware of these things to design their system to A, anticipate and B, participate to take advantage of these opportunities, right? And that brings me, when all of this background is just I wanted you guys to feel it, that don't lose sleep over Hormuz or Iran, Israel and US war. I promised you there'll be something else if that solves. Or Ukraine, Russia. It's been on it for 4 years and likely to continue until either one side or the other, both sides actually decides to sit and talk. But something else will pop up. So geopolitics is going to be here. It's going to be part of our lives, and we just have to embrace it and adopt it. Well, we're going to talk about the era of agentic AI. I gave you sort of a blockchain as a use case. So half of you probably think, hey, that was a big hype. We saw a bunch of promises, nothing happened. Right? Digital transformations, we've been talking about for the last 30 years, the advent of World Wide Web, 2000, the collapse of internet-based hype, but here we are, right? That became part of our lives. In 1960s, 70s, if you had told your father that you're going to have your bank account on the cloud, he would have kicked you out of the house. So you're putting your money in the cloud. Today we live in cloud, right? So things actually takes time to solidify in our lives, except AI. When was the first time you heard the word AI? And there was a company called, application called what? ChatGPT. It's about 2.5 years, 3 years ago. How many of you today use something to do with the ChatGPT? Okay. All right. So I'm glad that at least all of you at least have used something. So let's think about that. From the very first large language model that was released to today, let's just estimate this thing so we can actually conceptualize my conversations. 3 years. How many models do you think has been evolved since the very first model that we actually used? Just roughly.
More than 200.
Well, thousands of models been actually in back end. Large language model goes through the learnings every day, but it's about roughly 16 iterations have gone through, right? So we look at the cloud, 4.9, which was just released last week. It is, from the very first cloud model, the large language model, it is 4,600 times faster in terms of its ability to ingest, digest, and process the information.
Yes, but it's only digital.
It's only digital, okay? So let's talk about
It's not the real world.
I'm sorry?
It's not the real world, it's only digital.
Okay, what does that mean?
That means that cannot anticipate what we are anticipating as persons, as people, as
Okay.
procedures.
So,
No.
so the digital, so we're going to talk about the digital versus physical AI. So thing is that, yes, it is digital, and it meant to be digital, right? Until you relinquish or allow certain decisions. We're going to touch it, I'll go over the
Yes,
hierarchy.
but you're talking only about LLMs. LLM is not AI. It is a part of the AI era, but it's not the AI that we're going to have probably in 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, so I think, I'm not sure.
As an engineer.
No, I completely, listen, I'm working on 7 use cases at our institute, right, the research institute, that focuses on from design to delivery life cycles. Probably I would say, if I'm chin deep into understanding its implication in our field of supply chain, and I'm not talking about biosciences, space, or other areas, but I would bet that the amount of capabilities the models have shown. So again, AI is not something new. application is new. This was 1946, the first case study was built in MIT, written on it. So it's not the new concept about large language model optimization. I think the integration here between the physical AI and digital AI, it is incredibly, and I would love to talk about this for you to see what I mean, even though I'm not touching on the physical AI in this talk today. Okay. I was in Silicon Valley on this startup ecosystems just 4 weeks ago. 400 startups led by NVIDIA and AI integrations between the physical, just to address these questions about physical integrations. The general AI applications in robotics. There was a demo by a Korean company working with NVIDIA who has invested in Elon Musk, Tesla has invested in that company. The robot performed 14 different tasks dynamically, from chopping of broccolis, folding them paper napkins, and optimized in 2.5 hours what would have taken this physical AI, the robots, the physical AI to do it in 8 hours in simple general robots terms. So I think when you start to see the bridge between the, being able to ingest the data, run the large language model, then constitute the operational goals,
how much electricity did it consume to do that?
I'm sorry?
How much electricity did it consume?
Again, we can debate about it. I think,
yeah, but
I know, I agree. Listen, these are all philosophical questions, which are very good. I absolutely love it. This was the same thing when we built the steam engines and we were trying to move the goods across the continent.
And different kind of power
energy,
to embrace that kind of technology.
Listen, I would love to talk about that. The energy consumption is not going to be anything. It's 1,800% more energy that will be consumed 10 years from now just running these AI models than what human civilization has done it.
Okay.
Right? So I mean, but the problem is we're not solving for what that would look like. I think today you look at it from the capital standpoint, the biggest investments are happening is in building the infrastructure to support the AI. It's not stopping. Right? So
I can agree on that.
Right? So industrial revolution was the biggest thing. We have never seen industrial production system that we created in the beginning of the 19th century because it required what? We went away from small farms to large industrial production. It was, I'm sure our forefathers then, just like, this is crazy. How can you build something massive and ship across the continent, sail every day in a predictable way? Vessels are moving coast to coast. I promise to you, we will solve the problems. And this is where, when the frontiers was happening, people were exploring. The explorers were not thinking about the danger. They were charting the course and going and exploring the new opportunities. And I think AI is on that frontiers. And the reason I say that is because I am in it, witnessing that always follow the money, follow the capital. $8.5 trillion economy. The reason the GDP growth that I just mentioned, 42% of that contribution came from the AI-generated economy. Infrastructure, labor, computers, the chips, everything that goes into it. You take that out, we would be in the net zero growth factor. So we can have a philosophical discussion about it. Is it good or bad? I'm not sure.
No, as an engineer I'm talking about.
No, I agree. No,
I'm not a philosopher, I'm an engineer. So.
No, I agree. But how do we solve for
and
those?
I use AI every day, okay?
Agree. Listen, I completely agree about solving those complex problems, right? But I'm leaving that up to those that they have big checkbooks to build about, right? The data centers, the AI, I'm telling you, I promise to you, and we can talk about, I plan to be here at least every other year, if not every year. 5 years from now, I'll tell you the energy problems will be minuscule. Okay.
So.
Oh, You'll be very surprised. Okay, so let's look at it. Since we have the engineer in the room, I think more engineers in the room. Okay, let's talk about it. So we build softwares, right, to take on some of the commands we build and intended results that we want to produce, right? But imagine being able to actually make decisions, complex scenarios. And if we frame this up within the complexity of supply chain, I think it makes a lot of sense why supply chain needs to be on this frontier. With all the digital transformations we've been on it for the last 2.5 decades, what's the friction today in a global supply chain? By the way, it's an $18.5 trillion economy runs on supply chain. Let's round it up to $20 trillion. How much waste is built into our global supply chain? Anybody? Every dollar we spend, this is true in the US, I'm talking on average. Countries are on the spectrum. Every dollar we spend, how many cents do you think is waste? Because I don't share the data with costers don't want to share downstream. We do a bunch of manual things. We have incredibly redundant systems that's inefficient. Combine all of those things. What do you think our waste? 36%? Little over 1/3. So you talk about the energy. What if I just take away 50% of that waste, which is 20%, 18% roughly? I can cut down the consumption of electricity without even using word AI. So humans, we are, especially when it comes to supply chain, we are no different than the cavemen, moving rocks and bartering, because we absolutely are inefficient. Not because we are not capable of designing complex systems, because we just don't trust upstream guys don't trust the downstream guys. We all want to protect what we consider as our proprietary information. This is through global phenomena. So if you look at it, when I was at that conference for the AI, all the private equity and VC guys were sitting there with the fat checkbooks, writing big checks, not because they're stupid, not because they were in Las Vegas gambling away their money. No, these guys are very, very smart. But the reason is because they know this field, supply chain operation, logistics, transportation, is run in a very tribal way for centuries and continues to be run the same way. We chip away with this problem with a small screwdriver, right? It needs a sledgehammer. And this is why I propose to you that AI is, I would consider this to be a very different force than the forces that we have dealt with in the past. So rules, that's the software engineers. Engineers were designed to do actually nothing but taking a set of rules, building the protocols, writing the codes, and executing those. Well, we were then became a little smarter to have a prediction capability, like machine language. I can actually predict based on computing a bunch of variables, sensing the data, and then say, based on this, there's a likelihood of this happening. And obviously now we transition the generation of the agency. I'm going to propose to you, I'm not here to tell you that these models are capable of replacing humans. Right? We're not going to get into the debate. But what I am saying, that if the average human intellect today runs operations for you, or we run the operations for ourselves. If I'm an engineer and I learn to program and I program for myself or for somebody, I think you will find there are cases now that systems are capable without having to run the fatigues, distortions, and constraint on the perceptive side, that they are able to equally produce some similar results. So I think when we start to get to this level of awareness in the large language model, there's some amazing things the supply chain will be able to benefit of. Think about the big numbers I talked about it. $18 trillion, the $3 trillion of those dollars are pissed away into waste. Now, I'm not talking about waste of their money, water, air, pollutions, energy. If we can actually chip away those, we can actually find an incredible return on innovation. So what we're working on, what I'm working on, is this multi-agentic framework. Right? How do you actually run one particular operation, having an AI do a bunch of work? Yes.
This is my everyday business.
Exactly. So
I cannot work without it.
I'm sorry?
I cannot work without it.
You cannot work without the AI agents?
Of course.
Okay, so I'm glad. So we have a use case right here that actually uses, right? And so the idea here is we have to look at, an agent doesn't mean what people do the job. So that's the first myth we need to bust. Right, so it's not that I take your organization. Costas and I, we had a deep conversation. He's a man with a lot of wisdom and expertise, more than I do. But so it's about understanding the business and having this ability to have multi-agentic framework to run the best operational model that allows you to make comfortable decision within your parameter and allow this framework to produce certain things, right? So when we think about the human command or the orchestrations or the specialty agents, digital twin or the data integrations, these were big obstacles when we went through digital transformation. But I used the ERP systems from this, and I have a legacy systems over here. I have a TMS and WMS, and my sensing on the demand planning side is different. How do I actually bridge all of those things? I can neutralize that very quickly into tomorrow's thing, right? So let's look at it since we talked about these things. I want us to just go through one quick exercise. Just give me a few seconds. All right, just imagine you're in a 3PL, third-party logistics services, or you're running a business, whatever the case may be. I want you to, let's go through this. You have your order department, which is a demand sensing. Somebody's collecting the orders, what needs to be done. You have your traffic department, which manages the traffic control of either inbound or outbound shipping. You have a transportation department that communicates with the ferries and operators, because you guys are a bunch of islands. In our world would be long haul or the LTL and other shipments. Your routing department that organizes how we can plan the daily, weekly, monthly routing to optimize. Your customer service, who actually calls customer and stays in touch or talks to operators. And obviously you as a management, the CEO, COO, director, VP, whatever the case may be, that actually manages the exceptions. When something gets screwed up, somebody gets a phone call. Maybe that's it. So there are 6 different functions you have today. Are we in agreement in some capacity?
Yes.
All right, so if we are in agreement, I want you to pick the department that you're comfortable with, your role. Okay? Or we can randomly assign. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember your department. And then we start here. You guys can now start to number yourself. 1, 1, 2, 4, 6,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
and we'll keep our photo. Well, you should be part of this because you're taking pictures, so 6, okay. All right, so let's say now, I'm just gonna give you a quick, just because we are talking about AI and human, right? We have a pretty skilled, amazing professional here. Accident. We have a big accident on Attic-Yaris, right? The westbound, we know anticipated delay is 50 minutes to an hour. Roads will be closed, nothing moves either side. 14 routes, 14 routes are in jeopardy. 96 orders can potentially be rerouted, but you're not sure yet. About 116 of those orders are not going to make it. You guys are professional. I'm paying you a lot of money to run your department. Think about just among you guys, all the ones, all the twos, at least you get to know each other also. So let's get together for 5 minutes. I want you to all the ones, all the twos, all the threes, all the fours, all the fives, and all the six. I want you to think about, as a human mind, how would we solve this? And just give me one person from each of the group to tell me, well, how did you come up with it, and how long will it take for you in your current capacity to be able to come up with the solutions? Okay? Can we do that? Okay. I just want to hear this because I think this is going to be very helpful for us to then start to get into the agentic. So let's take a 5 minutes. This is also very good for you guys to know each other. So all the ones, twos, threes, fours, fives, and six. Okay? Let's do just a quick conversation. Can we take 5 minutes? Yeah. That'll also give me a break to drink some water. Thank you.
Who are the ones? Ones are, yeah, that's every, 6. Who is 6? 6. 6. 1. Leo? Yeah, all the one, okay, let's start here. All the ones, twos, 4, 5, and 6. You guys can take it. Yeah, just raise your hands here.
Under 6.
5.
Where are the fives? Εγώ είμαι 5.
Okay. So basically, what okay, let's bring it in. Everybody, let's sit down. I'm glad everybody had a chance to get to know each other. We're going to wrap up this very quickly, but here's what I'm going to show you. So think about my order department, order agent. Where's my team 1? Who's from the team 1? Okay. What was your human reaction to this problem? We have a disaster in making. We know it's going to impact the customer. What was your conversation?
First of all, we must talk with management team.
So you're going to call management team. Okay. Okay. And what would you say?
Okay. We have an issue. Okay. An accident in Attiki Odos. An accident in Attiki Odos. And we have some orders in our trucks that maybe we must not deliver it.
Okay, so team 1 is actually calling the management. Okay, team 2. What are we doing? Calling the management?
Number 6.
Number 2. The traffic department. Traffic department.
Traffic department is calling the routing department.
Okay, they're
And
calling
the customers.
Okay, routing department, and
Yes,
you call.
and wants the customers to be
Okay,
informed about that.
all right.
So probably we do that through the customers department.
So are we? We can continue this with all the departments, but are we pretty much understanding that we're calling everybody's calling everybody, right?
Actually, yes.
Right, we're calling each other, we're calling everybody. Customer service, my team number 5.
Who's going to
Who are you calling? You calling everybody?
No, we'll actually call we will try to communicate with customers.
And what would you tell them?
We'll tell them that there's been a terrible accident. We will try to reroute the 96 orders that we probably are capable to reroute. We will.
We'll get back to you.
Yes, I will get back to you. We will provide a time frame which you will choose.
Okay.
And the other 116, we will probably either refund them or provide them with some credit.
Okay, very good. So at least customer service department is awake and they're providing a customer service, right? But you understand the complexity of what I'm talking about, the human dynamics, the way the organizations are set today. This is where our conversations, once the Costa is done and we're going to sit down and talk about it, I want us to think about it. This is how we run and build organization. It's amazingly efficient to the point until it isn't. Right? Because what we do, these guys become the biggest choke point because every exception has to be managed by who? The management. All of you want to make sure that you don't get into trouble. Right? So who's the first one to score the point is the first one to break the bad news. Right? And then say, okay, we're going to come up with some solutions, and it just goes back and forth. If I were to draw this in a spaghetti diagram, this would be a massively inner twisted spaghettis with a bunch of scrambled eggs on the top, at best. And I'm talking about the top multinational Fortune 500 companies. If you take that, and I'm talking about publicly traded, international, multinational companies, 36% wastage that I talked about it, they're included in that. So if you're buying the Apple stock and thinking the Apple runs at the most efficient way, 82%. So the value that I'm trying to propose here, that we need to look at AI as a sort of an instrument to break the human barrier and human conditioning of how we tend to react to the problem, right? So let's look at it quickly. I'm going to take you into 207, exactly. Now this is my multi-agentic framework. 207, it triggered. Routing agent. Resequence is 14 routes. The one that I knew, I know which routes are the alternative route because my model is trained to understand. Customer agents contacts automatically, triggers just at the less than a minute later. Ferry agents, 7 Mykonos parcels will be missed because of 3:30 sailing is gone. It's already booked it, rebooked it automatically. 5:45 vessel. New labels printed and created and applied, right? Exception agent already understood which exception needs to be managed. So management is not getting any calls. At 14:13, 2:13 exactly, which is almost 5 minutes into it, they actually manage the exceptions. All the communication is done. Basically, you look at it overall, the net, and you can run these financial models, by the way. What we get to see is that we actually, it only cost us 412 euro from salvaging the situation, solving it in 5 minutes, and what would have cost us almost 6,100 euro, not having a decision made on time. So this is just a return on innovation. I don't call it return on investment. AI is going to change the financial calculation in terms of ROI, the I being the innovation. Imagine running business with this speed, agility, and guess what? I can actually, when exception agent and my human dispatcher, I can even automate those decision loops and allow that to say, within 500 euros, I want you to make the decisions, execute, send the email, get it done. Give the free credit or whatever, those can be built as a programming output, right? So basically, the idea here is I'm gonna stop here. The two things are critical. When investors are looking at it, and I happen to sit with those guys, that they write big checks, what they're looking for? They're looking for evidence as to, are you truly transforming? Are you really just tweaking the dials like we have done it for decades in terms of taking Excel spreadsheets and making it a little bit beautiful, or are we plugging the data from one system to the other? Are we truly transforming, right? So at least the numbers between 5 to 20%, some numbers are as high as 30 to 40%, but easily can be established, 20 to 30% in inventory reduction. right? 5 to 15% in procurement spend reduction. This is all McKinsey data that's been published just end of the year, right? What is also the evidence, and this is why I was talking to Kostas about TELENAVIS. Without partner, a lot of disappointment that you see in the early results of AI adaptation is if you're trying to go solo journey on this without having somebody with the knowledge of understanding what the genetic framework should look like, what the large language model and your domesticated environment should look like, the failure rate is about 40%. This is what data is making people upset, that they think the AI doesn't work. It's not the AI doesn't work. It is your inability to use AI framework in a right way. Okay, so let's just bring it up. So here's a challenge that I'm going to wrap up with. Basically, if you are the leader, if you have a one-year strategy, what we need to do, here's what my proposition will be for you. See clearly, provide the value, don't go for a whole enchilada. Take a small bite, one that you can actually chew and digest. Scale what works. Don't worry about solving the entire organization problem. So when I talk about 36% waste in the supply chains globally, chip away like you're carving an elephant, one piece at a time, and institutionalize. Big opportunity, but this is something I would recommend, right? And the reason I said TELENAVIS is because I've got to know Kostas, the way he's not only built the digital solutions, but his ability and his team's ability to understand sort of how to navigate through this jungle. So if you've ever done hike in unknown area, it's really adventurous. But it's nothing good to know if somebody has actually done it before, to pick the brain and say do's and don'ts. This journey is the same thing. AI is a jungle. If you try to do solo, we have the cases right now, about 400 data points of companies, 40% of them they failed. So I would propose to you, think it through to make sure you have a reliable partner. So basically what I'm proposing here to wrap my part is if you think this is the cloud that's going to blow over, I have a very bad news. It isn't. This is not an exception. This is not a blockchain. This is something beyond real. It's going to happen. It's going to solve all the problems that we talked about, energy being one, pollution. Neighborhood does not want. There is a NIMBY, not in my backyard. Guess what? All of those problems will be solved. The one thing, and I posted on my LinkedIn on the 250th birthday of United States of America. One thing that country has in our DNA, and I'm so proud to be an American in that regards, is that problems do not stop us from trying things. When we talk about data centers in space, imagine the energy problems. The biggest cost of data center is what? Cooling. Not just the energy, just the water to cool. That's what space actually completely eliminates those things. But those are audacious goals, but that's why they're audacious and why I believe that we will figure out as humanity. And American psyche, I would not second guess in terms of what we are spending in terms of resources in this particular area, and the focus is supply chain, because it's broken, it's inefficient, and we can certainly use it. So with that, thank you very much.
Okay, Nick said everything. So, thank you, Nick. It was a very nice presentation from the world to Greece. And I'm going to land it into Athens and Tinos. We were in Tinos with Nick this weekend. So, this is the second workshop we have with ITSLS about AI in freight transportation. In our first one, we had a group of experts discussing about what can be the crucial things that AI can help companies to do. And orchestration, optimization, of course, it was one of the first. And we had some recommendation out of this. We have a report in ITS, LS, if you want, you can visit our site and download it. We identified some barriers. Data is always a big barrier. Interoperability, Nick already speak about it. How much it costs, these two things. Skills and awareness, culture and return on investment, and of course, we are in Europe, regulation. Okay, I will use now a little bit a practical perspective about the use of AI agents within TELENAVIS platforms in transportation, within optimization platforms in transportation, to be more generalistic. The last couple of years, AI is in our lives, so we are trying to implement useful things for the users in our platforms. Data is always a constraint. Data is always the most difficult part of the story. Not the data per se, but normalized data. Data that has the exact qualities and quantities that we can use in order to have a trained AI agent that can really help. Because as Professor said before, his student use AI, and my children also use AI. One way to use AI is to believe that whatever it says, it is true. This is not the case. In order to have a good answer, you have to have at least 6 questions, and getting down in more detail, which means you generate data. Now in companies, to have quantities about weight or about tonnage, to have procedures, to understand the flow of the physical movements of goods, it is very, very important. So data is one thing. We have, with the telematics, fortunately, we have automatic, very well structured data. Then we have agents, planning agent, execution agent, fleet intelligent agent, customer communication agent. We have also some municipalities, and we have a municipality operator agent, and management inside agent. And we have the outputs: route proposals, exception alerts, natural language answers, estimated time of arrival, KPIs, recommended actions. Is that easy? No, it's not that easy. It's logistics are not easy, are very, very complicated. Our job is to make others believe that it is easy. But we know that it is a very complicated story because there are too many factors, too many exceptions. Time and geography, location matters a lot. So how you combine this time and location, it is crucial and very, very important. And in the journey, when you are developing specific agents for specific companies, you will find out on your trip that some assumptions that you have made about procedures, about geography, about locations, about are not correct. The managers, the people, think that they have the right data, believe that they have the right data, but they will not pass the test. All of a sudden, somebody will raise the hand and say, no. This route cannot be done. It is very long. It has many two stops. Actually, what it says that there is no time for this route. He believes that they cannot make the route within the 8 hours or 6 hours or 4 hours they have for each trip. But this can be formulated. If you have the right data and the right assumptions, time is into the model and not outside of the model in order to decide this route can be done, this route cannot be done. So, use case 1, TELENA. TELENA is from TELENAVIS. What it does, it relies on the telematic devices, and it is trained in order to answer questions of the type, where is this lorry? What is the remaining time to go to the next customer? How many kilometers my lorries have done today? If you have also a good cost formula, it can tell you also what is the cost of today's routes. And it is clever and getting clever every day. AI-assisted route planning in WFM. This is really challenging. What we have already learned is how we can understand what the router is doing. Because, you know, this is a very old problem. The last 25 years we have seen it over and over again. You give a solution to a router, and the router modifies according to his will the plan. Most probably he is right. Why he is right? Because he has information that is not in the model. Okay. So what we are trying to do is to understand what kind of information do we miss, why he is reshaping these routes, what is the implication of reshaping these routes in terms of time, kilometers, cost, or whatever other KPI you might have. If we have enough data, then we can give him back a scenario that it is more close to his expectations, or to train him the other way around, that look, there might be different ways to look at routing from what you have historically have in your mind, that this is the Glyfada route, this is the Porto Rafti route, this is the Athens Center route. Very interesting. Use case 3, execution agent and customer notification. This is about real time. It is exactly the problem Nick have us to solve. And my answer, Nick, is that I have WFM from TELENAVIS, and I have AI, and I can solve the problem. So yes, you can monitor your lorries, your trucks, your vehicles, where they are, and where they are not just in terms of geography, but in terms of the trip you have planned versus reality. Of course, reality is never the same as planned. Okay, it cannot be. We're not gods, so we cannot have exact information about the future. If the problem is big, 1 hour late due to Attikiotos, maybe snow in Attikiotos, maybe days, then you have to react. And you know from the first, let's say, 15 minutes of delay that you have a delay. You know that. You know that because you have a notification to say you are running late. Maybe there is nothing to do because, okay, you have the 15 minutes pillow that you can use. Maybe not. Maybe you miss a very important time window that you have with a hospital, or you have with a guy that he's leaving his store and goes to his house. So you have to do something. So plan, execute, monitor, communicate. That's the story of the use case execution part of the agent. I have almost the same approach as a pilot road map story with Nick. Start small. Start with a very well-defined story. Build on that. Gain some confidence. Build on that and go to the next level. It's not, I have AI, I do not have AI. It's not digital. It's not yes, no. It is an escalation that you have to go through in order to have your people, because by the end of the day, the humans still run the show, thank God, and for the next few years, we are here to run the show. I don't know if we are going to run the show after 20 years. And they have to trust. Trust is very, very important part of the whole story. They have to trust the AI story and the digitization story. It's not an easy thing. It is complicated. Humans are complicated anyway. So, first step, fleet size, routing, execution, customer notification. Second step, order vehicles, mobile application events, customer statuses and GIS layers. Very important step, business rules, alerts, natural language queries and approval logic, planning time, execution reports, time, kilometers, fleet utilization, service quality. And by the end, you are very near to have all the agents running and a human orchestrating and monitoring what the agents are doing. This is the target. It will take some time to go there. So I think that was my last. Well, yes, end of the show. We are here to open the discussion, and I want your input. I want, and Nick, both of us, to discuss with you about the AI story in logistics and your experience, your view on this story.
Thank you, Professor. It's been a pleasure having you here in Greece.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. The first question that I want to ask is actually about the thing that I told you before. It's a totally different thing, the LLM era and the physical AI era. So we're talking about two different things. And of course, the compute power that we really need to make all this happen and use it in a way that it's going to bring, you know, as we're running businesses, we need to see a future that is going to give us money. Okay? It's going to give us, you know, it's going to return back the investment that we're giving to the AI. How long this is going to take? From when we're going to see actual return to our investment using AI?
It's a great question. Again, I think I'm defining now the terms ROI instead of return on investment,
Yes,
or return on innovation.
I'm talking about ROI, not only in innovation, because I do believe this is very
innovative, but I'm talking about real money here.
So you think about every innovation cycle, initial, what we call the capital build-out costs are very expensive. Right? You can take any example.
Yeah, but we're talking about multi-billion dollars.
Multi-trillion.
Trillion.
Right? I mean, so basically, when you think about, let's take an example. I happen to take Uber in Greece. Did you know first 2.5 years, Uber, their ROI, what their ROI was, anybody? Zero. Minus. In fact, we blew close to $28 billion to prove the concept, the marketplace, which has a capacity to take demand dynamically and create a supply and build an ecosystem that breaks 100 years taxi option where you and I would have to walk to the taxi stand to catch the taxi. And the taxi, when it drops us off, we'll have to take an empty ride back, because that's how the program in our mind was designed. The taxi stands are the places one can actually take the taxi from. So to build this marketplace concept, initial investment would have to go in. I think what you're looking at it in terms of the AI, the biggest bet the money is making, I'm talking multi-trillion-dollar, is that they will invest in building the infrastructure, and eventually you and I will pay for that cost. Right? I mean, so again, when I look at it from the supply chain standpoint, hey, if I am pissing away $3.5 trillion every year, why not invest half of that? You can say more than half. So that is actually where I feel the substance of this opportunity is that if you do it what Kostas was talking about, do it slow, identify the areas where you can really see the immediate results, you may find 15 to 20% cost reduction on a simple things. Your customer aging, for example, communicating. Look at just in 5 minutes of interactions, so many phone calls and so many conversations. Imagine organization running businesses constantly do that. How many meetings we have unproductive? How many phone calls and email we write? Absolutely irrelevant. That's all waste. So when you start to think about those things, I think 15 to 20% is a very good number to actually do your ROI based on it. That's what we call the hurdle rate. Minimum 20% should be built when you're building your AI use case.
Thank you.
So 20% should be the hurdle rate, I would say. Yeah.
Okay,
Costa,
the next one. Come on, be brave.
So this looks like I may have shocked you guys. That this is actually.
No, Professor, again, you talk about blockchain. You did not tell us the story that actually was the. I try to. I'm not. I have not. It's not. This is not open. Is it okay? Oh, no. I'm not a good engineer, Costa. I cannot open.
Okay, okay, that's fine. So you said about blockchain. I did went to the website of the university and I saw some of your publications. I didn't know you before Kostas introduced you to our Greek audience here. I'm not a very good student anyway. But you said something about blockchain and that it did not actually succeed in the area of logistics or in the area of supply chain management. Can you tell us a little bit about this story?
So you look at the case study of IBM and Maersk. Every time you use the word IBM and the Maersk, what it does, it basically created a platform that was attached to their name, that you're using IBM systems and Maersk as the large steamship company and 3PL, 4PL guy, right? So if you're non-IBM technology service seeker or you're non-Maersk customer, you automatically, by default, you'll reject the solution. So what they did after 2.5 years, they spun out as an independent company and said, okay, we will actually detach IBM and Maersk, but we'll still build a solution. And the solutions will be used by the provider, and customers did not buy into that. They thought, hey, if I have a data that I'm going to put on this platform, how do I ensure the Maersk and the IBMs of the world would not actually use it against me? That
this
is the
is
problem.
The blockchain. This is the blockchain.
The blockchain. So when there was a distributed ledger, the cost was a big issue because distributed ledger, close ledgers, smart ledgers, you actually having more than a couple of individual outside of your organizations mine and keep the records of the data. So energy cost is obviously a big issue. But IBM and Maersk could not overcome that burden to create the independence. So they needed to create like what World Wide Web is. Nobody owns it. It's a standard in which the data pipeline runs, right? And it doesn't matter, there's nobody who owns the World Wide Web. If you think about blockchain being as such, it would have been very successful. But what does it take to build HTTP protocol or the World Wide Web? The governments, standard committees across the world would have to come together and build that. We could not draw those standards. Every country wanted to build their own standard. Every vertical wanted to build their own standard. So only vertical, the industry that was really efficient of adopting that was the finance. Credit card, banks, because they were moving money across and they were able to actually embrace that distributed ledger better. So therefore supply chain did not successfully embrace it.
Yes, we have seen this story again and again. I mean, here in Greece, the manager for Pyrosport, Cosmo, had made a very good, actually, way of communication with any ship and any shipper or any trader. It did not adopt it by the people. It's not a technology problem. There are, apart from technologies, we are humans. We have a lot of things apart from technology per se. This is also true with the router, the planner.
Yeah, the story of the router.
Yes, the planner is not stupid or does not want to go.
He's just one person.
But yeah, he has the keys. So it's a story that it is a repeating story. I think maybe sometime in the future, blockchain with the FTI, with another thing that will be under governmental control or EU control, will might go again because it is an interesting technology for logistics, for smart contracts. It has a value in it.
No, I agree. And again, I think if we look at it as we're conditioned to our environment, our experiences, the way we see things, and it's very hard sometimes to break those paradigms. So it's not, nobody gets up, I always remind this to people, and nobody gets up in the morning and says, oh, I'm going to go to my work, show up, and I'm going to screw things up.
Of course.
Right? I mean, we don't, at least I think majority of the people, I would say, that we don't get, they have those intentions. But we're conditioned because either systems doesn't work, or people that provide you the data that for you to do your job doesn't efficiently work. So then we adopt different processes, and it just builds on the layer and layer. The longer the legacy systems are built, the bigger the imperfections that they're actually working. It works every day, but it's not the most efficient way to get things done. Okay.
Anybody else? Yes, please.
So thanks for today, both of you, and of course, Professor. I've heard that China can build like 100 times more merchant ships than US and 30 more times than Greece and Europe. What shall we do? What can we do to overcome this and overbuild? We cannot overbuild China, but what would you choose if you could choose one way forward, like better partnerships between USA, Japan, Europe, or I don't know, AI, smarter corridors, smarter ports, choke points, I don't know.
Well, I think just a couple of days ago, the U.S. intelligence services published sort of a synopsis of their research that the AI models coming out of China is not only duplicating what has been done in the U.S., but actually being put on the steroid. So a lot of the one thing one has to realize that China has shown that it can learn, copy and paste, and produce 10 times faster than you can, right? I mean, so China has been able to scale the duplication model. So they're really, the AI race is a real between US and China. The thing is, we do not have actual gauge of anything that comes out of China in terms of what percentage of the information is propaganda, real, or combination. So we don't know. What we do know, what AI is producing in the United States in terms of both on the capital side, building the infrastructure, and on the digital side, being the models, that there is an incredible breakthrough about the computing side, processing side, as well as not just the supply chain, but in biosciences, the genome, some of the things, even this NVIDIA Chief Innovation Officer that I was on the Fireside chat with. I mean, it's just incredible vision. The diseases that hasn't been cured, or likely not to be cured, with our mind's limitation of being able to collect and synthesize data, I think the AI will open up some amazing frontier for the humanity. So I have a lot of positive beliefs. I mean, just think about when the electricity was invented, it was not the biggest invention was rewarded. It's a distribution of electricity that every house can have 24 hours power supply. Every industry can run the factory. And that's what for the last 120, 50 years, we've been celebrating industrial revolution. Now we're talking about 5.0. That is all digital. It's all based on this physical and digital AI. So what are the potential future opportunities going to look like? I can't really tell you, but all I can tell you, it would be similar to what happened when the lights were turned on. When the first flight took off and said, hey, we can fly a plane. When the first flight from Chicago to Los Angeles stopped 4 times to refuel. Today, the longest flight can fly 17 and a half hours to 18 hours without refueling. I don't know, the frontiers would be that we can fly cross-continent in a couple of hours. So a lot of innovations are happening. I think the human mind has always looked at the frontier and explored. I hope that continues, and I think AI is the frontier. That's actually very exciting in that terms. I'm not sure I answered your question.
He wants to talk China.
No, I want us to.
I want us to thrive, the economy to thrive, rather than
as
have
Europeans,
GDP.
as Europeans, as a colleagues with the US.
Let's start as globally, then I would choose the Europeans.
Because I believe
so
that it's a European issue now. It's not an issue between US and EU. We have issues now with our American friends, a lot of issues.
Now we are also imposing tariffs, 3 euros per product to Temu, let's say. I mean,
yes, but this is not
some
one
of
this,
it,
I don't believe that this is a solution, though.
I know, but we're doing similar stuff as others. I don't know. I've also seen that we're investing, since I'm dealing with European projects and programs and funding, Europe is also investing 150 billion in the global gateway to Africa. Let's say it's a program I investigated when I was speaking to one of your brothers' EU-Africa events. And it is about new corridors from Angola to Congo and then to Europe. And these things are interesting. A lot of markets are opening there, railways, ships, optical fiber, hydrogen cells. I don't know, can we build new actually transport locations rather than enhance the previously existing ones? Can we create a big connection with Africa? I don't know. Like
yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why my slide that I talked about the IMAC and EU corridor. Greece, you guys are actually at the prime real estate. You own a prime real estate. The only problem is that you don't have too many people. I mean, I think if Greece becomes 20 million from 10 million, all of a sudden you double the human capital, right? I mean, so you think about the size when you think about 7.5 billion people on this planet Earth. We live in Los Angeles. State of California is 40 million people. LA County is 12.5 million people. So one county in state of California is bigger than the entire country of Greece. So you are competing with the size, and it's a pure number. So the advantage, my proposition would be, how quickly can you embrace the innovation, embrace the AI, create an economic hub where no country has an ability to have two big continents besides their own, such as Africa and Asia, that they can connect to. Physically, can you build the digital connections? And if those connections can happen, can Greece becomes the innovation hub? Remember, the money was not made. Thomas Edison did not make trillions of dollars. It's the people that figure out, the distribution company that figure out the electricity to take it from the power generation to the people. They were the biggest recipient of the money. They're still making money. You and I are still paying the bill, hopefully, electricity bills.
Thank you. We are trying together with the European Union. That's our role at least.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I will just add one thing. What we are talking about is about the globe. Okay, there are the Chinese, the Americans, the Europeans. Between the Europeans, we are the Greeks.
For AI, it's just the US and China.
Yeah, for AI, I totally agree. And it seems that China.
Sometimes we have to take, sides. We have to be in one side or in the other.
That's the point. For the time being, it seems this is the case. We have to make a choice. To my opinion, in the long run, humanity does not have the option to have two choices or three choices or whatever choices. We have to find the way, because otherwise it will be a total disaster. I mean, if you escalate this, I don't know I assume where it ends. So somehow, I strongly believe, and I'm a positive guy, that somehow humans will, one way or the other, after a small catastrophe or a bigger one, they will find the right way to do it. We have a great opportunity and a great challenge at the same time. AI is both. It can be a disaster, or it can be, we will not need to work anymore.
Yeah, we will not probably need to work in the future, but we need to find a way to make ourselves useful. Otherwise,
exactly.
Why do we exist? For what reason? So,
this is have to find a way. And one way or the other, to my opinion, we're going to find the way.
So that's why he's a wise man. And so I'll tell you, so my practical answer to that question, so we debate about these things, and I have this debate with my wife all the time. So I don't understand. with all these advancements of technology, why do we humans can rise above all the differences? We're still killing each other, and for whatever the reasons may be. And I said, at the end of the day, we are no different than animal species. We just happen to think that we are the most intelligent species. And for thousands of years, in fact, I can go back 18 to 20,000 years of human history, we have done the same thing. I want what you have because I don't know how to get it. So the best way to do it is to either steal from you or kill you and get it. Either physical territory, intellectual capacity, choosing sides, you talked about it, and I'm going to end with this, my thought. You'll always have to choose the sides. Husband and wife, the kids have to choose side. I mean, you have to be diplomatic about it. But you think about all levels of it. The politics, that's why it's called the geopolitics. Right? The politics is only, there's a binary. Either somebody's right, unfortunately, for that to happen, somebody is proved to be wrong.
This is a zero-sum.
Zero-sum game, exactly. That's exactly right? We say we like good, but guess what? The reason good exists? Because there is a bad. If we didn't have a bad as an example to benchmark with, it will be common. Everybody's good. Then that's no longer good. Right? So I think ideally I would say...
You are dead. In this case, probably you're dead. Everybody's good. So.
Well, exactly. And unfortunately, that's the reality. I think the AI, I agree with you, AI will be very detrimental. There are bad actors, but they're already figuring it out. Right? How to not use this for a good purpose. But outside of that, I am just thinking in our lifetime, there are some great things we can achieve that we have not been able to solve. So hopefully you walk away with some enthusiasm, hopefully being Greek, living in Greece, that you guys should look at it. That in spite of what China does, in spite of what we do, trust me, the democracy, and I spoke about this on my blog on LinkedIn, democracy is ugly. Things don't work the way it works in China, because guess what? I sit at the top, make a decision, you execute. If you don't execute, you disappear.
Yes.
Solutions are very clear. In democracy, guess what? You and I, the way we debate it,
We debate, yes.
we debate. Right? You guys, this is the land which actually created 2,500 years ago, the platform to debate the thoughts. I think we need to appreciate that, and I think build on to that. That in spite of all of these constraints and geopolitics, the future is bright. Let's embrace it. Let's create an incredible innovation opportunity. And if you guys become the hub to solve this inefficiency problem by being innovative, why not? Greece doesn't need to rely on Germany and France to provide the beacon of Euro. It could be that it starts here. That's what I would hope, and when I come back next time, you guys are doing some bigger and better things.
We
So
hope so.
I had a question for Costa. Not that I'm in supply chain, I'm in space, but with all the discussion going on and what you just pointed out with limited population, but potential, I think there's a great potential opportunity of innovation, and how possible it is if you take Israel as an example. It's a pretty big innovation hub over there, and if you compare it, it's similar, along with the fact that you have port opportunities. So what is the environment like over here in Greece for an innovation hub, and how can it be scaled?
Israelis are, yes, they succeeded a lot in innovation,
And they're not lazy.
Huh?
We are very smart, but we are very lazy.
We're very smart.
No, we are not lazy. To my opinion.
Say we're lazy.
Yes,
Huh?
we're not efficient.
That's another thing.
Yes.
Okay.
You can say it is laziness, but you can say it is
Okay. No, to my opinion, the problem is not about laziness. It is not about. It is Israelis because they are in a threat for all their existence years of life in this state. They are very close together and cooperative. together. And they have made very good connections with USA. So they took a problem that they had, security. They made a product out of this problem. Most of their innovation is about monitoring, security, mobility. So they create solutions out of their problems. They were very compact as mentality, and with very good connections in Silicon Valley, New York. So venture capitalists flowed money into. We, by definition, from the very recent years, we are not very cooperative culture. We are very antagonistic culture. So it is, yes, it is a promised land. I mean, in terms of size and in terms of capacity, we are better than the Israelis. In terms of planning and cooperation, we are very, very behind. We have to learn out of this and to find out ways to cooperate. We prefer to have one company of 1 billion than to have 50% of a company of 5 billion. We prefer the first solution, not the second. We have to find ways of communicating and cooperating instead of competing. That's my answer to your very thoughtful question.
So this is just my 2 cents. I think there's an opportunity for universities to play a role over here to give that mindset and a vision of what is possible, because part of it is education, right? And through that, and maybe through some government plans of setting that vision, could help it, because there is a huge potential.
And I think, so, she's a smarter of 2. I mean, we married all this stuff. So, I think the week, end of July, I mean, I'm back in LA for 10 days and I'm up to Vietnam. An example of the country, post-Vietnam War, which they hate the word Vietnam War. American war on Vietnam, that's what they asked me to say. But think about post-conflict. They're building an incredible physical infrastructure and digital infrastructure. Singapore, 5.5 million population. The reason the country called Singapore Inc. Incorporated, one of the most efficient, and I worked with the government for 4 years. 2022 is when I moved. I used to take my 150 students, spend 8 days to show them how government, public-private partnership works. The best example, better than in Europe, better than US, where it works like crazy. So there are so many examples that we can build. Obviously, universities, industry, government, they all come together. And society, they all come together, right? And make things happen. Remember, exactly 60 years ago, Malaysia detached. They called this little small swampland. They didn't want to do anything because it had no resources. Today it doesn't have any resource. Their resources, their people. They build.
So it also has to do with politics.
Oh, incredibly, absolutely.
So yeah, it's not.
Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of Singapore, built that with the vision that our resources is our people, right? And you go there and it'll blow your mind away. So I think if we can end on a positive note, if that's okay, I think the positive notes would be, this is a seismic opportunity if I'm consulting to the Greek government, I would say, don't think about the past. Don't think about the population being lazy or constraints of how we used to think. Think about how you build an ecosystem. Ecosystem basically means something that's self-sufficient, in which you and me and communities and companies and the government and the policy is actually all integrated as a one big wheel, and it just spins. And then once you make the motion, the law of physics says that, hey, it will continue on, as long as you don't introduce the friction. So with that, on a positive note, I think hopefully when I see you guys next, you guys will be doing something bigger and better and innovative and moving Greece to the next frontier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We navigate also outside from logistics into the more general picture. So thank you, all of you. We will see you maybe next year, hopefully.
Yep, absolutely. Look forward to it. Listen, it's been an amazing, he's been an amazing host, and we have really enjoyed our time. Good. Thank you so much. It was good to meet all of you.